Welcome everyone to the Sisterhood Super Tuesday Health Series. Tonight we have Dr. Samantha Balass, who is a family doctor who obtained her medical degree from McGill University and completed her residency training at UBC. She also has a postgraduate diploma in practical dermatology. She works at Rockland MD, but is currently on maternity leave. She's passionate about preventative health, treating skin conditions, and teaching. She loves singing to her kids, relishing her husband's cooking, and spending time with family. During this pandemic, she has developed a new hobby of painting art. Tonight, we are honored to have Dr. Samantha Balass talk to us about debunking myths about the COVID vaccine. Go ahead, Samantha.
Thank you so much, Grace. What a nice introduction. So hi, everybody. It's really nice to see you all. Mom, Dad, Gamma, I see you and I see everybody else. I'm really excited to be talking to you guys. Hopefully you'll find my talk useful. I did it just voluntarily because I think it's important that we have a little bit of perspective with all this new information going on. So I'm just going to share my screen. I'm going to show the PowerPoint, and I'm definitely open to questions, but hold them off because I'm anticipating a lot of them and hopefully I will answer them in my talk. Okay, so thank you guys for having me. I'm going to be talking about the COVID vaccines. So first, just wanted to tell you a bit of who I am. I know many of you know me from synagogue. I'm Charlie and Linda's daughter, and Valentine and Victor's granddaughter and such. But I graduated from McGill. This is me on the right, getting my McGill degree from medical school. And I work as a family doctor. I did some training in BC, and now I'm working at Rockland MD, as you just heard. And I'm also a mom and a wife, and my girls are very important to me. But why am I doing this presentation? Why is because I really think that right now we're in not only a pandemic, but we're in an infodemic, an information epidemic, where we have so much information totally accessible to us on the internet, and we don't know what's real and what's not real. There's a lot of misinformation, disinformation, where it's intentionally trying to be wrong and lead us off. So I think it's really important to have a healthcare professional's perspective on things so that, you know, we put things in perspective. So why I'm giving this talk is exactly that. There's a lot of fake news out there, and I actually love this little picture on the right, which is that what actually happens in the world is so much more than the tiny little proportion that is reported on the news. And we have to remember, what does the news show us? What does the media show us? It shows us the wild, the crazy, the scary, all the stuff that gets attention. And sometimes it blows it out of proportion and makes us feel like we're all going to die tomorrow, but that's not actually representative of risk. So we're going to be talking a lot about risk, statistics, things like that. So what is on the agenda? This slide is important because there's a lot that you guys probably want to know, but I'm only going to be talking about a narrow area. That's what I had time to do research on. So we're going to be talking about why were the COVID vaccines developed so fast? What is Quebec's vaccine strategy? We're going to talk about the 3 different vaccines that were approved in Canada: Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca. I know some of you guys have gone to Florida and gotten others. We're not going to talk about those ones. We're only going to focus on Canada's approved vaccinations. We're going to be talking about recommendations that Public Health Agency of Canada has put forth for specific groups of people, and then we'll have time for questions. So why were they developed so quickly, really? We're probably all pretty skeptical. What is this? Normally it takes 5 to 10 years for a vaccine to come, and yet we had available vaccines in less than a year. Oh, there must be something wrong. I'm not going to take that, right? There is a lot of skepticism there. But if we really look at Why it was so fast is because there was a lot of collaboration. So as you could see, I put up the 3 international medical agencies. FDA is in the US, Health Canada is the equivalent here, and the European Medicines Agency. These guys all, there was international collaboration. There really wasn't a lot of competition, actually. People just wanted to help out. I wrote SARS over here too, because the SARS, remember SARS in 2003? There was a lot of research done for SARS, but it was contained. It was an epidemic. It wasn't a pandemic. It wasn't worldwide. And a lot of the research from SARS, tried to create some vaccines. A lot of that research was utilized towards COVID, and that was almost 20 years ago. So, it's not just 1 year. We're really talking about basing it on older research. Money was poured into any incentive to beat this pandemic. So it was readily available. I wrote here overlap of phases, because clinical trials that are done, there's 4 phases of the clinical trials. And normally you have to wait for each one to move forward, but actually there was an overlap. Things were done simultaneously to get the ball rolling. And then in terms of COVID itself, COVID is so prevalent that it made the studies really fast to have results. I mean, if you want to see after you get the vaccine, do you get it or not? It's very easy because it's so rampant. It was easy for the studies to be done quickly. And there was also easy recruitment. A lot of people were willing to come on in and join the studies. I think it's important that we understand really the phases of the clinical trials, because here we could appreciate what was done in the vaccines, what it was normally done, and how it compares to what was actually done for these vaccines. So normally there's the preclinical, that's like the lab work, on animals and petri dishes. Then we go to phase 1. Okay, phase 1, very few people, 20 to 80 participants on average. What do we want to know? Is it safe? What's the dose? That's what we want to know. We're really testing the waters there. Okay, move past phase 1, you go to phase 2. Then you have on the order of 100 participants or 300. And here you want to know, is it effective? Does it work? And does it hurt? What are the side effects? Okay. Then once that passes through, you go to phase 3. And here it says 1,000 to 3,000 participants. Guess what? The Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, all of these, you know how many people they had in these studies? They didn't have 3,000. They didn't have 10,000. They had 30,000 to 50,000. That is a lot of people to see. What do they want to know in phase 3? Again, they also want to know, is it effective? And what are the side effects? And once this passes, the drug is submitted for FDA approval in this schematic, but Health Canada, right? It's submitted. And then there's this whole long FDA review period, which takes time. And then we go to phase 4 once the drug is approved. Phase 4 is, okay, the drug is out in the public, it's being administered, the drug being the vaccine. And does it work on the population, large scale? So what was cut here? What was cut? What's important to know is that the science was not cut. They didn't take out or speed up any of the science. What was cut was the red tape. So the overlap of the phases, even before phase 1 was done, when it was preliminary results, on to phase 2 really quickly. And also this big yellow period for FDA or Health Canada to review it, that was jet setted. It was made a priority ahead of everything else. And sorry, I'm getting distracted from my children. And hi, everyone. This is Danny. So it was the FDA review was jet setted, made a priority. And what's interesting here is that the pharmaceutical companies took a risk. What they did was actually started producing the vaccine before phase 3 was fully approved. So they did it based on the preliminary results. So they really did it quickly. That's the bottom line. Now, what is the goal of the COVID vaccines? Okay, this is important to know because it's not so that we don't catch COVID. No, it's actually you get a vaccine so we prevent serious illness, hospitalizations, and deaths. so that we maintain the functioning of the healthcare system and we achieve a goal of around 75% efficacy of the vaccines. Okay, so just a little quick thing about the Quebec's vaccine strategy is that what they did is Quebec collected data for about 2 months from September to December. And they found that the most common people who got struck with those important things the vaccine's trying to prevent, namely hospitalizations, ICU submissions, and death, were older people. We know that, okay? It says group 1, residents in the CHSLD, healthcare workers, people living in residences, people in distant communities. And then we go to group 5 was over 80 and group 6 was 70 to 79. So these people, as you could see, they really, if we go to this chart is in French, but if we go to the top right, it says décès, so deaths. So if you look at all the percentage of deaths that occurred in these groups of people, altogether, we're talking about more than 92%. And so that's why such a big amount of people were dying in those groups. Those people got priority to get the first vaccines. I do want to just highlight this group over here in yellow, which is 60 to 69, which I'm sure many of you are. It's my parents' age group. Why weren't they prioritized? Well, I mean, they did make up a significant amount of people. And what's interesting to note, I want you to look at the numbers. So when it comes to cases of COVID, they made up 8.2% of the COVID cases in those 2 months in Quebec. But look how much hospitalization and ICU they made up, 16 and 28%. And then 5.6% of them died. So these studies just go to show that COVID does affect a lot of people, but we had to prioritize people who are getting the worst illness and death and people who are passing it on. Give me 1 second. Okay, say bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Say bye. Nice to see you. Say good night.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, another reason why I'm doing this talk is that so that we could have a babysitter and family members in our house once we're all vaccinated and I won't have to have my baby screaming. So sorry, this is just a side note, personal note, moving on. So what about chronic illness? Okay, many of you guys probably have, or hopefully, don't have too many, but we all get, as we get older, we get more diseases, high blood pressure, diabetes, whatever. So people are wondering, what if I have a lung condition? Does that make me more at risk for COVID? So here's the thing. The answer is yes, but age is more important of a factor of you getting hospitalization or death from COVID than your chronic illness. Now, let me just specify here. On the x-axis, we have groups of ages, 20 to 59, 60 to 69, 70, and so on. And then we have 2 columns. The green column is sans maladie chronique, no chronic illnesses. The blue column is avec maladie chronique. So every age group has this. And on the y-axis, we have the risk of catching severe COVID whether you have chronic illness or not. So what do we see here? We see that, yes, if you have a chronic illness, you're more likely to get complications of COVID in every category. But look what we see. If you're in the 70 to 79-year-old category, and you don't have a chronic illness, okay? You're this green bar. You are healthy, you're 75. You have more of a risk of problems with COVID than if you are in the 60 to 69 group with a chronic illness. So that just proves that age is more than a number. Now let's do a little bit of microbiology teaching, okay? How do vaccines work? What exactly is happening? So over here, this is that famous COVID virus that you see with the spike proteins that you're all familiar with on the pictures. What scientists do to make a vaccine typically is they've inactivated it, okay? So that's why it's in gray here. It's to represent, it's a dead virus. That means if it's injected in your body, it's not going to give you the disease, but it'll stimulate the immune system. That's things like polio, okay? The polio vaccine, inactivated. What about other options are live attenuated vaccines? So here it's represented by smaller virus particles that they can't actually give you the disease, but they're live and they're less harmful. They're going to give you a day or two of sickness. These are things like the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. Then there's another thing called subunit spike protein. They just take this little protein here, they inject it in you. It's not going to give you the virus, but will stimulate your immune system. These are the older generation of vaccines that we all know and have received and given it to our kids. But what happened in COVID vaccines is these two up top. So we have the viral vector, okay, where I'm going to show you another schematic for a second. The viral vector vaccine is up here. What they did was they took the COVID spike protein, they put it inside another virus. This is called a vector. In this case, they put it in the chimpanzee virus, and this virus infects chimpanzees. It doesn't touch humans. It doesn't give us any disease, okay? But it acts as a vector to bring it into our bodies. Once it contacts the human cell, the virus puts in that little protein inside the human cell. The human cell says, hey, this is not normal. This is foreign. Let's fight it. So it produces millions upon millions of antibodies. Get ready to kill the actual disease. So then your body is armed against the disease itself if you come into contact with COVID. Back to this schematic, the other kind of big kind of vaccine are RNA vaccines. So how does that work? That's the lower part of this picture. So remember again, that spike protein, instead of taking the protein itself, what they did is they made mRNA sequences, which is another way of saying a recipe. Instruction manual. They put the instruction manual inside a lipid coating, inside some fat coating. They put it in your arm, the vaccine. Once it goes in your body, it goes to the cell. And this mRNA serves as the instructions to say, okay, body, okay, cell, now you make the spike protein of COVID. And then a lot of these spike proteins are made. And then of course, same thing. The immune system says, hey, that's not normal. It makes a bunch of antibodies, the soldiers that are ready to fight off the virus. And when you come into contact with the real virus, again, your body is immune and ready to fight it. Okay. So now let's jump right in. I hope that makes sense. Can I get a nod? Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, Grace, I mostly see your face, so thank you for the thumbs up. So people have said this, can mRNA vaccines alter our DNA? The answer is a big fat no. Okay, this is a schematic of the cell. This is the nucleus where our DNA lives. But you know where the mRNA vaccine goes? It goes here in the Golgi apparatus. That does not go into our DNA. It is impossible for it to change our DNA. So don't worry about that. That is fake news. Now, talking about the two different kinds of vaccines, mRNA and viral vector. So the mRNA type are Pfizer, it's otherwise known as Oxford or Covishield, but going forth, I'm going to call it Pfizer and Moderna. Those are mRNA vaccines. And then we have the viral vector, which is AstraZeneca. And then there's also the Johnson & Johnson one called Janssen. Okay, so I made this chart. It's a lot of information. I will be coming back to it. Don't worry, you don't have to try to figure it out. We're going to talk about it. Okay, so this chart, we're going to go through every single vaccine. We're only going to really go through the first three, okay? Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca. And we're going to see the different categories here. So there's the type of vaccine, so mRNA or viral vector. What is their reported efficacy? Does it work in the elderly? How many doses? What storage temperature? What are the side effects, the rare side effects? And I included here the different strains that have come out. There are a lot more than just two, actually, but the ones that made the news that are relevant is Great Britain. And actually, that's the one that hit the Montreal, Côte Saint Luc area. And then there's a South Africa strain. So let's jump right in. We're going to now zoom in on the mRNA vaccines, the one that has the recipe, okay, Pfizer and Moderna. So let's start with the famous Pfizer. You all want Pfizer. Pfizer is the best, right? Is that what you've all heard? Wait, Pfizer is good, but so are the others. That's going to be my message. So the Pfizer vaccine is reported efficacy of 95%. But what does that mean, 95%? It means 2 weeks after you receive your second dose in the study, in the phase 3 study, you are every individual is 95% less likely to catch COVID. So they're 95% protected, okay? It's good in the elderly. There are 2 doses. It's ultra cold storage. So really we're talking about like minus 70 degrees. It's that's complicated then to store it. So different facilities can't all carry Pfizer. What are the side effects? A headache, pain in the arm, chills, fatigue, nothing bad. Rarely there have been reports like 11 people in 18 million that have some anaphylaxis. We're going to talk about that. And it's actually good against the Great Britain strain of COVID, the variant, not great against the South African strain. So what I want to show to you guys is what I use to evaluate the efficacy. I'm not looking at the news. I'm looking at the study. So this is a big study published in a huge journal called the New England Journal of Medicine. And what you see here in this graph is on the x-axis, we have days after first dose, And on the y-axis, you have the incidence of COVID cases. Now the blue are the people in the study who got the placebo vaccine. Those are the people in blue. The red are the people in the study who got Pfizer. So what do you see here? From day 0 to approximately, let's say day 12, 13, the cases of COVID go up. That means you are not a hero day after your vaccine. In fact, you're not even a hero week after your vaccine. Where do we see the switch? At around day 14, there's not that many more COVID cases among the vaccinated people. And obviously, if you are in the placebo group, every day that passes, more COVID cases happen. So if you see here, what this red line says is that after day 14, there is 95% efficacy that you're not going to catch COVID, okay? So just to review, it was a phase 3 study with 42,000 people over 16, and they were monitored for 2 months. And there we go. We talked about the efficacy. And sorry, I correct myself. This is days after dose 1, it was 92% effective. Okay, 14 days after dose 1, 92% effective. And then later that you got the second shot, then it becomes 95% effective. Okay, pretty damn good. That's what I have to say about that. Okay, now okay, we're going to come to the side effects in a minute. Moderna, the other mRNA vaccine. So here we'll go through this chart. This reported 94% effective, same thing, 2 weeks after the second dose. Pretty comparable to Pfizer, 1%. What's the difference? In the elderly, they said it's 86% effective in over 65. That's still pretty good. Less than Pfizer, which I don't have the data, but I believe it was a little higher in the elderly. Also 2 doses. And the storage temperature is not that cold, so it lasts a little longer. Same side effects, same rare side effect of anaphylaxis. And Moderna actually is reported to have good efficacy so far on the Great Britain variant and the South African variant. So what's the difference now with Moderna and Pfizer? Does this ring a bell? This chart is the same exact deal, okay? And pretty much the same exact information. About 14 days after you get Moderna vaccine, you have after dose 1, you have 92% efficacy. Whereas if you got the placebo, you keep getting cases of COVID. But if you're the red, if you got the actual vaccine, after 14 days, pretty much nobody gets COVID. Okay, so just a review, Moderna again is a phase 3 study. There were 30,000 patients over 18 who had an appreciable risk of COVID infection. They were monitored for 3 months. whereas Pfizer was 2 months. And then you have the efficacy, 94 after 2 doses, 92 after 1. Now, a lot of people are saying, oh my God, Quebec, what is going on? Why do we have to wait? We're supposed to get it after 3-4 weeks. What is this? The government messed up, etc., etc. But you have to understand that these studies were done under pressure. We had to get it out. We had to prove that it worked. So just because in the trial they waited 21 days, it doesn't mean we in real life have to. In fact, as I'll refer to later, many of the vaccines you know and take, you don't get them after 21 days, the booster. You get it after a month to 6 months, some of them after a year. So it's not that big of a deal, okay? Side effects we talked about, pain in the arm, headache, fatigue, and rarely you get the anaphylaxis. So what do they say? What does Health Canada say for anaphylaxis is if you're known to have severe allergic reactions that have brought you to the emergency room with anaphylaxis, then you may not want to take an mRNA vaccine. You may not want to take Pfizer or Moderna just to be safe. You may want to take something like AstraZeneca. Now moving on to the famous AstraZeneca that we've all heard about in the news, especially yesterday. So this is the viral vector. Remember, they put in the chimpanzee virus and then it replicates in our body and we have an immune response. So what's the whole deal of AstraZeneca? Its reported efficacy is 60 to 70%. I know it's 2 doses. So from what I gathered, after 1 or 2 doses, it's approximately 60 to 70% effective according to the trial. But it's 100% effective against severe disease, hospitalization, and death. Actually, all the vaccines are more or less 100% effective at eliminating severe disease, hospitalizations, and death. And wasn't that the goal? That is the goal. Do you remember this slide way earlier here? Just a minute. I thought I wouldn't have to do this, but I will. What is the goal? Prevent serious illness, hospitalizations, and death, not prevent asymptomatic or mildly symptomatic infections. Okay, so going back to AstraZeneca, 60 to 70% effective against catching COVID at all, but 100% effective at getting the goal of reducing hospitalizations and death. Okay, so it's normal refrigeration. It lasts for 6 months, so it's actually very accessible compared to Pfizer and Moderna. And common side effects, pain, bruising, redness. Rare side effects, blood clots. Hold on, I have a whole section on that. We're coming to that. And it's effective against the Great Britain variant, not so great for the South African variant when it comes to mild to moderate cases. Now, why 60 to 70%? First, let's deal with this. Oh, I don't want it. I want Pfizer. I want Moderna. It's better. Hold on a minute. Hold on. Not everything is created equally. When did they do the Pfizer and Moderna trials? They did it in the summer. How much COVID was around in the summer? Not as much as AstraZeneca, who did it in the fall and the winter when COVID was on the rise. Remember, we had such a great summer without so much COVID cases. We were going to restaurants and then it closed again. AstraZeneca was unlucky that once it was ready to be done in the phases of the trials, it was fall and there were more COVID cases. So, and there were more hospitalizations and all that jazz. So, you know, it's a little bit judged unfairly with the 60% to the 95%, you know, I'm just putting a plug out there. So we're going to talk now about what do we see for AstraZeneca. This is a crazy slide. It's from actually the INSPQ, which is basically public health in Quebec. It's from one of their lectures. And what I want to draw your attention here is, I know you can't really see what these say, but this says estimé, okay? And this is the confidence interval, which don't worry, you don't have to be a statistician to understand, but this number 62.5 and this 71.3 is where I obtained the efficacy between 60 to 70% effective. What are these numbers specifically? It says that The efficacy 15 days after the second dose is 62.5%. And the efficacy 15 days or more after the first dose is 70%. Interesting. Okay. The other thing here is this is very interesting. Okay. The number goes up from 55 to 81, but what is it going up in? This is if you get the second dose soon, within 4 to 8 weeks, the efficacy is low. But what if we stretch it? Okay, what if we do it at 9 to 12 weeks? Okay, so like 3 months in between doses. Oh, 69%. What if we wait to give AstraZeneca even more 3 months than 3 months? It's 81% effective after the second dose. So the longer we wait, the more efficacy it has. And this is represented, I think it's, hold on a second, sorry to go back and forth. This is here, this is just a schematic that actually what they found is that if you get vaccinated with the 2 doses of AstraZeneca with a short time interval versus a long, you know how many more antibodies you have if you wait? Almost 3 times more. You have a better immune function if you wait to get the second dose over 3 months. So, you know, the government of Canada, maybe, you know, we can criticize it, but actually it's better for us, okay? The other thing I want to draw your attention to is the efficacy in the age group, because initially AstraZeneca had a lot of bad rap for 65 and up. Look, it's saying that the efficacy is 43% in 65 and up compared to 18 to 65 is 60% efficacy. But this 43% is not really a good estimate, because who signs up for these studies? Does 80-year-old people sign up for these studies? No, young people do. There were thousands upon thousands of young people in these studies, and the very few people who were 65 and older. So with the minimal data they had on the efficacy in the minimal amount of older people, they came up with this number. But look at this, the confidence interval, which is a statistical measure of around where does this sit. If it's a tight confidence interval, you could be confident that that number is accurate, that 43. But look at this, it goes from minus 99 to 83%. You can't trust that. So that's why now we say, you know what, it actually is effective in older people, and the truth is in the pudding. Okay, we already said all of this stuff, so we're going to skip this slide. The truth is in the real life data. So what happened is when they went to Scotland, they looked at real life. This is after phase 3. Okay, this is phase 4, which is post-marketing surveillance. They said after 1 dose of either AstraZeneca AZ or Pfizer BioNTech PB, after 1 dose in Scotland, how effective were these vaccines at reducing hospitalizations? And what did they find? After 1 dose, Pfizer did worse than AstraZeneca. Look at that. Pfizer was 85% effective, AstraZeneca 94%. Though they're still very comparable because the range, the confidence intervals overlap. Okay, and if we do it according to age, they stratify, they actually find that for both vaccines, to reduce hospitalizations after just 1 dose, it's very comparable. 18 to 64 is 85% effective. If you're 65 to 69, 79% effective at preventing hospitalizations. If you're over 80, 81% effective at preventing hospitalizations. We reached our goal. That was our goal. And in England, you can see for AstraZeneca here, it was, and Pfizer, the efficacy to prevent symptomatic infection, okay, right? That was the goal of the trial. If we go back to the trial of AstraZeneca, the goal was here, efficacy is reducing any infection, not hospitalization, just any infection that's symptomatic. Well, 60 to 70% with Pfizer, 60 to 75% with AstraZeneca in people over 80. So it's pretty equivalent. And at reducing hospitalizations, we talked about it, 70 to 80%. So what do we get from this complicated slide with a bunch of numbers? What I understand is they're more or less equivalent. Pfizer and AstraZeneca, they're more or less equivalent in real life. Okay, COVID variants, we talked about AstraZeneca is good against Great Britain, not so great against the mild to moderate cases of the scary South African variant. So how long do the vaccines protect us? This is a big question. You know, we were wondering, okay, I get the vaccine, now what? Am I going to have to get an annual COVID vaccine, like an annual flu vaccine? Can I hug my grandchildren? What's the deal? So it's still unknown because it's ongoing studies, it's evolving. And also the participants in the study were only followed for maximum 4 months. 4 months is not a long time. So we are still doing continuous studies to evaluate how long does the vaccine protect us. But we know that the longer time between doses, the higher the efficacy. That's what was demonstrated with AstraZeneca. The higher the efficacy, because it's more time for our body to mount an immune response. Now, let me tell you something. You know the word booster? Booster means boost. It means you're already up, you're sitting, right? A child is sitting, they need a booster seat. You're already sitting, you're up, but you're just a little bit higher. That's what the second dose does. The first dose is where the money is. So everyone, again, who's criticizing our government to say, oh my God, this is terrible, what we really should be doing is be grateful that we have availability of one dose at least that gives us pretty good efficacy for the people who need it most. That's really how we should be thinking. We should be grateful because the first dose gives us the most protection. And later we get the booster. The longer we delay it, the more protection it gives us with 2 doses. Okay? So we don't exactly know yet what's the ideal time between Pfizer and Moderna. Studies are being done. And with AstraZeneca, I already told you guys that the longer we wait, the better the immune response, 3 times more. What about mixing and matching? Have you guys heard that on the news that you know, they say, okay, get dose 1 of, let's say, AstraZeneca, dose 2. If you get Pfizer, it's better than if you just get only AstraZeneca. So this, all we have at the moment that I can comment on is that there are some promising animal studies that show that you actually do have better immune protection with 2 different kinds of vaccines. So for example, dose 1 is an mRNA and dose 2 is a viral vector. So we're going to have to wait. We all have to wait approximately 4 months anyway in Quebec to get the second dose. So we'll see what happens. There will be more studies that will inform policy and decisions. Okay, let's take a breath now. We're going to talk about the news, but I'm not going to refer to the news. I'm going to refer to science. AstraZeneca and blood clots. What's the deal? Now, you would have expected I put a picture of a blood vessel with a clot, but actually, I'm going to show you where in the body it affects you. If you get a blood clot, it can go to your brain. It can go to your heart. That's called a heart attack. The brain is a kind of stroke. It can go to your lungs. That's called a pulmonary embolism. And it can go to your leg. So you get swelling in your leg and pain. Okay, that's a deep vein thrombosis. Okay, what's the story? Okay, I'm going to do chronological order. So first, on March 18th, European Medicines Agency, that's the equivalent of FDA or Health Canada in Europe, they came out with a notice that said that, yes, there were approximately 25 cases of blood clots reported in the Europeans who have received AstraZeneca. By the way, this was 25 in 20 million. So 1 in a million, approximately 1 in 1 million. That's like the chance of winning the lottery. 1 in a million had blood clots. They found that it was in women under 55, mostly. There were some men, but mostly that was the age group. But what did they say? They said, still, we can't conclusively say that the vaccine caused the blood clots. We can't yet say that there's a correlation. We're going to continue to evaluate it, but we still do believe that the vaccine benefits of AstraZeneca outweigh the risk of blood clots. Okay, now, just yesterday, NACI, which is the National Association. Oh my God, I don't even remember what it's called, but bottom line, it's Public Health in Canada. I think it's the National something Committee on Immunization. That's what it is. So they basically govern everything and anything that has to do with vaccines. So yesterday they put out a recommendation on AstraZeneca and young adults. And what did they say? They said we shouldn't use it on under 55-year-olds. They said it's because rare cases in Europe have reported that mostly in women under 55, about 4 to 16 days, so within 2 weeks of receiving the vaccine, they got these extremely rare blood clots. What was the mechanism? How did it happen? Is it because of the vaccine? Is it not? It's still under an investigation. But it's possible, they said, possible that maybe there was a rare immune reaction with the actual vaccine that caused it. And how frequent was it? The rate was about 1 in 1,000 to 1 in 1,000,000. Okay, we're gonna be cautious here. We're gonna say, okay, it was a higher rate of 1 in 1,000. Okay, 1 in 1,000 get blood clots. And you need to know something. Okay, I'm reporting to you this now. I just put this very slide together this afternoon because it came out yesterday, this recommendation. So you need to know that it's rapidly evolving evidence. So really what Canada is saying is that as a precautionary measure, while studies are being done to evaluate exactly what this risk is about, we're gonna pause giving it to younger than 55. So on a positive note, you know how many cases of blood clots were reported in Canadians who got AstraZeneca? 0. 0 in 500,000 doses. 0 people got blood clots in Canada who got AstraZeneca. Now, if you already got it, should you be freaking out? Should you say, oh my God, I'm going to die? No, you just have to monitor, okay? You have to monitor for 4 to 20 days after the vaccine for risk of shortness of breath, chest pain, leg swelling, abdominal pain, sudden severe persisting worsening headaches or blurred vision, or skin bruising other than the site of the vaccination. So, you know, I've heard of cases of people being scared because their arm was bruised for 2 or 3 weeks after the vaccine. Oh my God. It doesn't mean that they have this crazy blood clot situation. It's normal. But if you get bruises on other places of the body or small red dots called petechia, then you have to go to the doctor, the emergency room. So the other thing people are upset about, oh my God, Canada already bought X amount of AstraZeneca vaccines. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Now no one's going to get them. They're going to throw them in the garbage and we're never going to get herd immunity. But according to this recommendation that I showed you, they said the following. Canada is expected to receive sufficient mRNA COVID vaccines, Pfizer, Moderna, to fully vaccinate the population with 2 doses before fall 2021. AstraZeneca vaccine was expected to make up a small proportion of the COVID vaccines available for use in Canada. So therefore, the vaccines will not be significantly delayed without using AstraZeneca in younger adults. Now, I just want to say that 2 things. First thing is, what is this risk? Should we really be afraid? So I did some math here. Please trust me. I did some math. We said we're going to be cautious and say 1 in 1,000 people get blood clots from AstraZeneca. Okay. So in 500, sorry, not 1 in 1,000, 1 in 100,000 people get blood clots in Europe with AstraZeneca. So 5 in 500,000 people would get blood clots with AstraZeneca. Now let's compare risk. 1 in 500,000 people, that's your risk of getting struck by lightning. So if you go outside, who the hell thinks of that? Oh my God, I shouldn't go outside. I'm going to get struck by lightning. It's like such a small amount, but pretty comparable to that of the blood clots. And you know what? Pregnancy is really higher, much higher risk of getting blood clots. Just being pregnant, healthy and pregnant, no past history of blood clots and pregnant, you are 100 times more likely In the most conservative of risk estimates for the AstraZeneca blood clot, 100 times more likely to get blood clots if you're pregnant than if you get the AstraZeneca vaccine. And I'm being really, really conservative here. The other report was 1 in a million of AstraZeneca get blood clots. So that would make blood clots in pregnancy relatively a lot higher. The other thing I want to say is, it's not on the slide, but I just did read that in the news, we're going to be, Quebec is going to be giving us a choice to take AstraZeneca or not. Now, why are they doing that? They're not doing that because they think AstraZeneca is a bad vaccine. They're doing that to save time, because people are going to be watching the news and saying, no, not me. No, I don't want AstraZeneca. I'm 55 and over. I'm healthy, no history, nothing, but I don't want it. So they're anticipating for this because we're in this infodemic that I referred to earlier, because we are bombarded with news that's new and evolving and scary. What happened? Canada said, okay, AstraZeneca is good, but not so good over 65. And then they retracted the same and they said, no, it's not warranted. And now they're saying, okay, give it to everybody. Oh, not under 55. Wait, hold on, it's precautionary. So, it really confuses us as the public. It makes us mistrust health professionals, mistrust all this. What I'm here to tell you is that even though the research is evolving, I put this presentation of risk to show you that it's really not common. It's exceedingly rare and unlikely that it'll happen. And already in 500,000 Canadians, not one reported a blood clot. I mean, to me, that's pretty convincing, but we're just taking precaution while we evaluate why, the mechanism, how did this happen that AstraZeneca did this? And once we figure it out, then we can give more definitive green lights or red lights, okay? So would I recommend it? If you are 56 or 55, would I recommend it? Yes. Yes, I damn well would. I would definitely recommend it, because any vaccine is better than nothing. And as you saw with the real life comparison of Pfizer and AstraZeneca, they're pretty comparable, real life. Okay, so now that gives us the summary. We won't talk about the Janssen and the other one. Now we're going to close the lecture with, what does the National Advisory Committee on Immunization, Canada's public health agency, what do they tell us? Okay, their mandate, by the way, is to give us everything related to vaccines. So what do they say? Who gets what? They said that the mRNA, just given the efficacy data, the mRNA vaccine, Pfizer and Moderna, should be prioritized over viral vector like AstraZeneca for people who need it most. Okay, those are the highest risk of severe illness and death, and those are the highest risk of exposure. So we're talking healthcare and essential workers. When will we get the second dose? NACI is saying, this is NACI, sorry, the National Immunization, whatever, on immunization. When will we get it? Up to 4 months after the first. Now, behavior after the vaccine. So I put this GIF of Borat dancing with a group of villagers, close, exhaling, breathing. God, I wish we could be in this state. I wish we could do that. But unfortunately, Canada's public health agency says that after we get the vaccine, 1 or 2 doses, at the moment, we cannot change our behavior. We can't do this because we don't know yet how long it will protect us. We especially don't know, can the vaccines prevent asymptomatic infection? That means that we don't have it, we don't have symptoms, but we can pass it on. Does it prevent transmission? We don't know. Studies are ongoing and emerging. I will tell you that the CDC, which is the Center of Disease Control, that is our US counterpart to NACI, it's the same thing. They actually say that once we get the vaccine, the 2 doses, we can be in the same room with other people who are vaccinated with no masks indoors. So you see, they all have the vaccine bubble here, and that's back to normal indoors. And if one person from a household is vaccinated, they can still be without a mask indoors with other people, relatives of that household or of one other household. This is what the US says. So how do I interpret that? Is that the Canadian government is not going to go and police every single move we do. So I think that 2 weeks after, this is just me, by the way, I'm not a public health expert, but I'm just going to say what I think, because a lot of you guys have received your first dose. I think 2 weeks after you get the vaccines, it's probably okay to see your friends who also got the vaccines. It's probably okay to see your grandchildren who wouldn't have gotten the vaccines because they're their children or great grandchildren. But you still have to take precaution. So you still have to wear your mask in public settings, keep your distance 2 meters, wash your hands. We all know that. So just if we want to stick with Canada's recommendations, they say no change. You can't do all these things. But if you're looking at the US, you can, have a little more leniency. And if we look at Israel now, everybody's vaccinated 2 doses. You can go to a wedding and no one's wearing a mask. And God willing, we'll all be there very soon. Now, what does Canada say of if you have COVID? Okay, this is another question. Doctor, what if I had COVID? Aren't I protected? What for get the vaccine, right? Well, actually, what we know is that you're only immune for 3 months. Getting a second COVID attack after you got a vaccine, after you got COVID, you only have 3 months of protection, really, because reinfections are rare. But really, what does Canada recommend? Canada recommends that you get the vaccine anyway. If it's offered, get it right away. Even if you just had COVID a month ago, get it right away. Because we don't know how long exactly the duration of immunity is. And we know that, you can get it after 3 months. What if you're immunosuppressed? Okay. Immunosuppressed people were excluded from trials. So we don't exactly know what's going to be their response from the vaccine. But what we do know from history of vaccines is this. If you have an immunosuppressed condition like Crohn's disease or colitis, or you are taking chronic steroids, or you're taking immunosuppressant medicines, we know that your immunity is going to be less. You're going to have less of a buildup of strong immunity from the vaccines. It's also going to last a shorter amount of time, and you're going to have less side effects because your immune system is a little bit lower. But what does Canada say? You're immune suppressed, get it anyway. Okay, even though they were excluded from the trials, in real life, people who are immunosuppressed have gotten it and they should get it anyway. If you're autoimmune, if you have an autoimmune condition, you should also talk to your doctor for the risks and benefits. But in general, it is recommended. It's probably safe. It's just a matter of the efficacy on you. Another big one is pregnant and breastfeeding. I'm sorry, this lecture, I know it's 8 o'clock now and it is going over time. I'm almost done. I just have to get through these last few recommendations. So many of your daughters, granddaughters, or you are pregnant or breastfeeding. I am breastfeeding and I just got the vaccine on Friday. Woohoo! So what does the data say? The data says that there is no data so far. There is no data so far on the COVID vaccines. We didn't put pregnant and breastfeeding people in the big studies that I showed you. They were excluded. But here's what we know. Okay, we're going to base it on what we know. It's evidence-based. What we know is that pregnant people should not receive live virus vaccines. Is COVID vaccine live? Absolutely not. It's mRNA or viral vector. There's no alive piece of the virus at all. Okay, so that's one thing we know. So that's a pro. Another pro is that being pregnant, okay, some pregnant people say, I'll wait. I don't want to get it. I'm not sure yet. And you're entitled to say that. It's okay. But guess what? If you're pregnant and you get COVID, you have a higher risk of hospitalization and ICU and preterm labor if you get COVID. So really, you should talk to your doctor. It's not a requirement, but overall, experts believe it's unlikely to pose a risk if you're pregnant or breastfeeding to your babies. Another really interesting thing is when you are breastfeeding, did you know that the mother's milk gives antibodies and immunity directly to the baby passively through breastfeeding? So if you are a breastfeeding mother like me and you get the vaccine, your body after 14 days makes antibodies. Where do you think they're going to go? Straight in your breast milk, and they're going to protect your baby from COVID-19. So theoretically, it's actually good for breastfeeding. It's actually good. This is coming from reputable sources. What about kids and teenagers? So far, Canada says we're not going to give them yet. They're not in the studies. But if you happen to be 12 to 15, remember the trials did them on 16 or 18 and plus. So if you're younger than that, 12 to 18, and you have a really high risk of severe outcomes of COVID or high risk of exposure, then we can consider giving you the vaccine. So the final plug is, how do I get my appointment? You go on Google, you type in quebec.ca/COVID vaccine. Then you get to this page and you click on vaccine appointments. It'll take you to this page, how to get vaccinated. You see this blue, make an appointment to get vaccinated, click on that. Then it will take you to this page, Clic Santé. You book your appointment. So you select a service, you click on this, it takes you to this page, and then you select COVID vaccine. You choose it, you press choose this service, and then you enter your postal code here, and then you can book the vaccine. Okay, so that, just wanted to make it a user-friendly for you. I'm going to finish my lecture now with this picture. This is from Journal de Montréal, and I have to credit my cousin Jack Fatal, Big Jack, for sending me this wonderful picture. It's a man smoking a cigarette who says, "Ah, j'ai fait mes recherches, les vaccins, c'est poison. I've done my research, vaccines are poison." He's an anti-vaxxer, okay? He's skeptical. In the meantime, what kind of poison is this guy having? He's got marijuana, he's smoking lots of cigarettes, he's drinking Coke, he's eating, what does this say? Extra bacon with a burger here, and poutine here, fries, craft dinner, so packaged foods, drinking lots of alcohol, and sitting. He's sedentary, and he's got a belly. So all of this stuff is telling me that this man, and sitting in front of his computer, so he's not moving that much. So this man who said, no, the media told me, I did my research, I'm not going to get a vaccine, or I'm going to wait. Unfortunately, he's got more of a risk of complications from all this crap that he's doing than from getting a vaccine. So I want to preach to you guys. I wonder if I'm preaching already to the choir, or I'm preaching to some people who are uncertain. Vaccines are medicine's greatest success stories. We have eradicated, did I put this in? Hold on. We have eradicated smallpox. We have really decreased diphtheria, pertussis. You don't even hear about these anymore. The only time you've heard of measles is when there have been communities who have been against the vaccines. So this is our ticket out. Get the vaccine. Don't be afraid. The efficacy for all of them is pretty damn good. The risk is really, you know what it's going to be? You're going to be in pain for 1 or 2 days. You're going to have some arm pain. You're going to have a headache. Okay, big deal. You could still go to work. It's just going to suck a little bit, but okay. You're going to be free. We're going to all be free. We're going to get out of this pandemic. And you know what's really important is that you need to realize that for us to achieve herd immunity, that means that there's enough people who are immune that we're not going to continue to spread COVID. 70% of the population has to get the vaccine. 70%. If 60% gets it and the rest are going to wait or be afraid or refuse if AstraZeneca is available, we're going to be stuck. We're going to have more lockdowns and all this crap that we have to be, not living our normal lives. So really, as a family doctor, as a mother, as a member of our community, I really think it's important that you and all your friends and family, really, you should go book your appointments. Tell everybody vaccines are safe. Vaccines are effective. Vaccines will end this pandemic. Here are my resources. If you really still want to do some more research and you don't trust me, there's a really simple, easy to read article here from Yale Medicine. If you just type in Yale Medicine COVID-19 vaccine comparison, it's where I took a lot of my data. And that's it. So thank you guys so much. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Thanks for your attention, and I'm ready for questions.
Thank you, Samantha. For questions, you can raise your hand or you can type your question in the chat. To start, we have a few in the chat. So Samantha, I'll start with those.
Yeah.
The first question came from Gilda Abdulazer. When you said the Pfizer vaccine was not so great against the South African variant, what exactly does that mean? No protection?
No. So what it means is that if you get the Pfizer vaccine or got it, and then South African variant makes its way to our hometown, it will not really protect against mild and moderate cases of COVID. So you may catch COVID and get a mild or moderate case. It will prevent serious disease and hospitalization, but not against the mild to moderate. Actually, that's why, Gilda, they stopped providing the Pfizer vaccine in South Africa, if I'm not mistaken, because they needed to protect it against all the cases possible, and there were better vaccines for that variant.
Okay, thank you. Tapchitat has a question. Can you mix vaccines? I think she means, can you mix two mRNA vaccines,
Yes.
Pfizer and Moderna?
Okay, I really appreciate that, and research is coming on that right now. It's possible, like, you know, we don't exactly know, but on the animals they're saying, could you do dose 1 Pfizer, dose 2 Moderna? They're both mRNA. Maybe. We'll see. We have 4 months to wait from now until our next injection, so we'll see.
Okay, thank you. 2 questions from Jacques. For 80 plus people who had the first Pfizer shot and had severe shoulder arm pain for about 3-4 days, what is the likelihood of having a similar pain after the second shot?
Okay, for 80 plus?
Yeah.
Okay, so first off, I want to just say that interestingly, the older you are, the less likely you are to have severe side effects in general with the vaccines. Because your immune system is just less effective overall, so you will have less of pain of the side effects. But after the second dose, I will say that anecdotally, and what we know from other vaccines is that you probably will get a little bit more side effects or the same as bad the second time around. What am I talking about here? I'm talking about I'm referring to people I know, let's say in healthcare, who had COVID and then they actually got COVID, the disease, and then later they got the vaccine and like they were dead for 2 days, you know, like it was like it really hit them hard. So side effects are side effects. Be prepared, but 4 days of severe arm pain is way better than being in hospital, dying, or being locked up in our homes.
Thank you. Question 2 from the same gentleman. If the delay between doses increases antibodies, then why did Israel health authorities not do this added delay?
Okay.
Any studies that show that 4 months delay does not decrease effectiveness for Pfizer?
I didn't look into that, so I can't comment on Pfizer specifically, but very good question. Why did Israel do it? You know why? Because Israel paid a premium to I'm just like in awe and admiration of our country. They paid a premium to the pharmaceutical companies to get the vaccines fast. And in exchange, they said, give us the vaccines first, we'll give you all the data. That's what they said. And so why did Israel do it fast? Respect the trials time between doses? It's because that's what the studies said, that's what the efficacy was, and they did it based on protocol because it was available. And also, guess what? If Israel is the leading source of data to the world, how would it look if they say, oh, hold on, world, we're just going to wait 4 months? The trial said it's safe to give it after 21 days or 28 days. That's what they did.
Thank you. Wilma Michelle, there's supposed to be a study with NACI that people with cancer and older people need to get the second dose after 2 months.
I didn't look into that, so I can't comment. But if you go on, if you type on Google NACI COVID vaccine recommendations, you can press Control F to find it, and you can look that up. I'm sorry, I didn't look it up.
Okay, and Covishield, you said, is the Pfizer vaccine?
Covishield is AstraZeneca.
Oh, okay. Covishield
Pfizer is
AstraZeneca.
BioNTech. Covishield is AstraZeneca.
Next question I have on, someone texted me. If you're trying to conceive, do you wait to get the vaccine or should you get it?
This is an excellent question. So far, it's strongly recommended that you get it because even though we don't have specific data from the trials of any vaccines of people trying to get pregnant or whatever, does it affect fertility kind of thing? I think that's the question. We know that it's a safe vaccine. We know it's not live, and not live vaccines are safe in pregnancy. And we know that if you are pregnant, you do get pregnant, you refuse that vaccine, but then you catch COVID, you're at a higher risk of severe illness. And if you go, let's just say you don't get the vaccine and it's not offered to you at a certain time, and then you go to the hospital and you're to deliver, and you by chance have COVID, goodbye to your husband. You are on your own. Goodbye to your baby. Goodbye to your baby. You're on the COVID ward. You're not going to see your baby after delivery. They're going to be separate from you. So, I mean, all this to say, right now, we don't have specific data saying, does COVID decrease fertility in humans? But in rats, it does not. In animal studies, it is safe during pregnancy. It's safe breastfeeding. So that's what we can base it on.
Thank you. There's a question from Joe Samuel.
Thank you so much, Samantha, and a warm welcome from the West Coast, Santa Monica, California, and I wish you all good health. We both here, myself and my wife, got the second vaccine about 3-4 weeks ago, and my wife is still terrified. She wants to wear the mask. She refused to go to travel to the desert. She's so afraid. What words would you tell her to advise her that she can shed some of the fear, that she could live normally, back normally?
I really appreciate this question. What I'm hearing is some discord between your perception of the vaccine and your wife's perception of the vaccine, which has been not only regarding the vaccine, but regarding COVID in general. It's just been an extremely polarizing topic. What would I say to your wife and to everyone listening? I would say, now that she's fully vaccinated, she can let her guard down a little bit. She can go to a shopping mall. She can go outside. She can go, according to the CDC, which is in the States, she can be in the same house as other people that are vaccinated without a mask. But the truth is, Joe Samuels, that we still don't know exactly how safe is it in real life now. And that's why even the CDC, that has more lax recommendations, because America's almost fully vaccinated, 2 doses, even though the CDC said you can do those things and relax, they still said you have to exercise the same precautions in general. So you still have to avoid crowds, wear mask 2 meters apart, because 95%, or if the real life is 80% efficacy, there's still a chance that you get vaccinated, and you may get COVID.
For how long would you continue to be precautious as if we didn't take the vaccine?
Well, I don't, that is Yada, yeah. I don't think, oh, she's saying hi to my mom. I don't think that, 1 second, Josh. I don't think that we have to be living in fear and complete isolation. Once we had our 2 doses, I think we can feel anxiety-wise a lot better. Sorry. But for how long? Your guess is as good as mine. Because really, we need to wait until the entire population, 70% of the population got the vaccine. So we need uptake. And actually, that's really why I'm giving this lecture. Because for all the fear that's generated from the vaccine, it's better to get any vaccine than nothing. Are there any other questions?
Thank you. Yes, there's a question from Charlie. I think it might be your dad.
Oh, okay, I'm listening. Hi, Dad.
As far as brand recognition goes, most people never heard of Moderna or AstraZeneca. Pfizer, of course, is another story because of Pfizer's other famous drug. The one that contributed to easing anxiety amongst
Can you
men
say that
worldwide.
again? The one that?
That contributed to easing anxiety among men worldwide. But are you saying that in the case of COVID vaccine, all three are equally efficient in giving immunity?
So according to the trials, they are not equal for giving immunity. According to the trials, Pfizer and Moderna, Pfizer is 95% effective 2 weeks after the second dose. Moderna is 94% effective 2 weeks after the second dose. AstraZeneca is about 60% effective after the second dose in the trials at reducing COVID at all, any symptomatic infection. So they are not equal. But again, what I said was, remember how I said that Pfizer and Moderna did it in the summer and AstraZeneca did it in the fall? And also what's happened in the trials doesn't exactly mirror what happens in real life, where efficacy could be different, because then people who weren't included in the trials are getting vaccinated, people who have immune disorders, people who are really old, people who are pregnant, and also you have to think about like other factors, like the nurse who gives the vaccine. Did she take it out for too long? Did it lose? I don't know. Like there's so many other things that don't go as protocol in the real world. So to me, that says that ultimately, I believe that they are all equal. That's what I believe. That the rare cases of anaphylaxis with Pfizer and Moderna and the rare cases of blood clots reported with AstraZeneca are just that, rare.
If there aren't any other questions, I want to thank you, Samantha, Dr. Samantha Balass, I'm sorry, for giving us such an amazing presentation. There was so much information that I'd never heard of, the details of scientific studies, explaining that you can take two different vaccines, the difference between mRNA and the other one. So thank you so much. And thank you for bringing your children to the lecture. I want to thank, of course, the office staff of Françoise Babulot and Viola Tolchinsky and Linda Abudi for the unwavering support. And I want to thank you, the people who have been attending on a weekly basis the Super Tuesdays since the beginning of November. Every lecture has been amazing. We thank you all for joining us. It concludes the winter version of our health series. Backed by popular demand, people are asking us to continue the health series. We will take a short break, but I want to thank everybody who was involved, and thank you again, Samantha. Amazing evening, enjoyed by all. I want everybody to unmute themselves and congratulate you and say what they want to say. I want to remind everyone that we welcome donations in honor of Dr. Samantha Balass. I'm sure all of you have been coming to some or many of our lectures. It's better than going to Place des Arts. We have been entertaining you during COVID. Please make a donation to any fund you want at the Spanish and Portuguese in honor of Samantha Balass. And please now unmute yourselves.
honor of هذا event.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you guys so much.
Awesome, Sam. Awesome. Bravo.
Very nice.
Thank you very much. Bravo, Samantha. Amazing. Amazing.
Bravo
evening.
to all of you.
Hak Sameach.
Sameach, everyone.
Thank you so much.